I'm Hal Gregersen, the Executive Director of the MIT Leadership Center. Today we're visiting with Doug Reddy, who is a senior lecturer at the MIT Sloan School. Welcome, and glad to have you with us, Doug.
Glad to be here, Hal.
We are visiting today about leadership, which is where you've spent a lot of your life. Not only, I think, researching and studying leadership, but trying to make a difference out there in the real world. If you were to have the world as an audience, what would be the most important message about your leadership work that you'd want to tell them?
Great question. I'd say, first of all, that leadership is a privilege. And I think that too many people view it as a burden, and I look at it as an incredible privilege. And I think that leaders should take advantage of that privilege and use it for the good and to work toward a common goal and to build organizations that have a very powerful sense of purpose. And that's where the work started on this whole notion of building a collective ambition with organizations. But I found over time that that's not enough, that while purpose is incredibly important, that it's also vitally important to also build organizations that are performance-oriented and principles-led. And it's that combination of those three capabilities, I think, is what really creates game-changing organizations.
Where do you think that came from for you, this purpose piece? Because it is easy to just be a steward, manager, leader. It's easy just to run things as they have been. It's easy to go on autopilot, all that sort of stuff. But somehow purpose is taking on a deeper resonance in your world. Did that start young? Did it come later?
It came in a professional sense, probably over the past 15 years. It came perhaps in a more personal sense, maybe over the past 25 or 30 years. The global financial crisis was a real wake-up call for me, in not so much personally, although we all lost a bundle of money, but that came back. But it was more the fact that I, as many of our colleagues probably were receiving calls from organizations for help, but with a different sense of tonality to it, with a deer in the headlights type of, I don't know what's going on here type of, background to the questions for help or the requests for help. And it really shook me in a way that it was a more serious time then, because it had nothing to do with everybody's portfolio going south, but much more to do with a fundamental lack of trust in our leaders and in the institutions that these leaders are supposed to be, both leaders of and stewards of. And that actually triggered me to say, well, what is it? Not so much what caused it, because I think you can do a forensic analysis and you just have to look at The Big Short or read the book or see the movie, and we know exactly how it came about. But more so, with the question for me was, what's the difference between those organizations that came through that period okay at a minimum, but perhaps even better off than before? And that was a real turning point for me, to take a look at that. And what I found, I talked to dozens and dozens of organizations about that, and what I found, that's where this notion of the unifying force of that was the power of purpose. That people, when everything else looked as though it was crumbling, those leaders and those organizations that actually used that crisis as an opportunity to help organizations rally around a sense of purpose, and combined that with the capacity to enable people to actually contribute to solving the problem, to stay disciplined enough to focus on building through that scary time, to be above all trustworthy, even though people might not like the message, but they knew that they could trust the leaders that were going through those transformations in a way that they could trust what they were saying. But people who also that had a view to the future and were focused on helping to grow and develop the people in the organizations to get through it together. And I think that those are the organizations, at least from the research I did, that that came out better, and not perfect, but came out better, and built that sense of abiding trust that the organization, they knew that that they were in this together. And I think in those times, that's a real powerful lesson, and one that has stuck with me for the last 10 years for sure.
Well, thank you for giving us not only your time but your energy.
Okay,
today.
good.
Appreciate it.
Thank
very
you.
much.
Thank you, Hal.